We tackled the second-year running backs. We tackled the second-year wide receivers. Today, we're breaking down the second-year quarterback and tight end report, going through in order of underdog ADP, some of the best sophomore tight ends and sophomore quarterbacks. Of course, we had a historic quarterback class, 6 in the first round. And of course, we had the best rookie tight end season that any of us have ever seen. So we're going to go in depth on those players. Also, we did have some big Rashee Rice news today. There'll be a fantasy news of the day, TikTok, and short to cover most of that stuff.
Big news.
Big time news for sure. So, Danny, let's get it kicked off with Brock Bowers, who, of course, is really the only relevant tight end that came from the 2024 NFL draft. But boy, was he ever relevant. He was very relevant for a class that only produced one good tight end so far. 1,049.5 receiving yards. Is this higher or lower for the 2025 season? 2.5 100 plus receiving yard games. And he is currently being selected right now as a top 20 player in overall ADP for home leagues and for underdog drafts alike. So with Bowers, I think the main question, we could talk how good of a player he was. Everyone kind of knows that. The main question for me is like, really, what is this guy going to represent for when you select the button on him? Because it's hard to know, is it going to be optimal to build around a second round tight end?
Yeah, and given his current recent ADP drop, I'm more comfortable taking him because 15.45 PPR points per game, tight end 3 overall. But on top of that, which is really encouraging, is as we know, the Raiders offense last year, not really a great unit. In fact, a below average unit. Despite that, he was top 6 in the NFL and number 1 at tight end, number 2 per game in terms of overall targets. And we always talk about the natural progression. Year 1 to 2, we see these young wide receivers take that leap forward. We mentioned it on that video yesterday. Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, all these young, Brian Thomas Jr., all these young first-year wide receivers going into year 2 tend to improve in their second year. Nobody's really factoring that in with tight end. Like, what if the best prospect we have ever seen from both a production standpoint, from a year 1 standpoint, ends up improving in year 2? 25.9% target share in year 1. What if that bumps up to 27, 28, potentially 30%? On top of that, you're also getting an upgrade all across the board in Las Vegas. Obviously, Geno Smith coming in as the quarterback, Chip Kelly providing some more stability at that offense coordinator spot, Ashton Jeanty obviously being the crown jewel added piece of this backfield. Like, if this offense is a fringe top 15 unit and we see Brock Bowers take that further leap to be a high 20s, if not a 30+% target share player, like, we could be looking at Kelsey 2.0. And yeah, at top 15 overall valuations, it's tough for me to click on his name as opposed to, Brian Thomas Jr., Devon Achane, and guys like that. But at 19th overall, man, like, I'm deciding between Brock Bowers and simply inferior clicks.
Yeah, I think I have him at 20 or 21 in my rankings right now. Here's the thing that's really difficult to parse through a little bit with the Las Vegas Raiders, because I think everything you said is true. And I think there's ways to actually take advantage of this if you don't believe this to be the case. The Las Vegas Raiders, according to Vegas right now, are projected for the 6th lowest points in the NFL. Only the Browns, the Saints, the Giants, the Jets, and the Titans project for lower amounts when you just add up the implied point totals weeks 1 to 17 throughout the entire year. And yet you have 2 players going in the top 20, Bowers and Jeanty, and you have 3 going in the top 75 with Jacoby Myers. So it's kind of...
Jacoby Myers sticks out like a sore thumb there.
Yeah, he shouldn't be going that high for sure. But I don't know. Part of me gets a little bit worried that this offense might not be very good. And like you said, it was bad last year, but Gardner Minshew was allowed to, uncork the ball quite a bit. Like, if this offense loses a lot of volume, that could affect Bowers a little.
Sure. We're mentioning the point totals. Where do the New York Giants rank on that list?
Well, the Giants rank 3rd lowest, but they only have 1 player going high. It's very consolidated. It's all Malik Neighbors. They don't have a good run game. They don't have any other good receivers.
Sure, and I agree. Malik Neighbors, I'm perfectly fine taking that range. Basically, what I'm pointing, though, is if we're going to cause some negativity on Bowers for being in a less than ideal offense situation, which, again, 6th lowest, I already think is an under projection, considering Geno Smith literally was better than that on an inferior situation in Seattle last year. So I also think that's just something that the market should correct, to be honest. Like, I think that's kind of outrageous.
Who do you think he should be ahead of? I'll tell you the 5 teams directly ahead of
the Raiders.
The Raiders.
Go ahead.
The Steelers, I think we could say he'll probably score more points than the Steelers.
Yep.
The Panthers, who we kind of believe in. The Colts, who we kind of believe in.
I would take him over the Colts.
The Falcons, the Cowboys. I don't know. I think they're appropriately ranked for the. Maybe the Steelers is the only one that I.
Well, the Steelers for sure. I also just think, frankly, the Cowboys being in that discussion, like, what the fuck is going on? I don't get that, but realistically, doesn't have to be the most ideal circumstance. If you're a good enough player, Blake Neighbor, special wide receiver prospect, Brock Bowers, special tight end prospect, like, why can't he go out there year 2, be a 170 plus target tight end? And because Geno Smith is giving him a lot more stability at quarterback, like, what if Geno is like, sure, is he like Dak? Is he Burrow? Is he Mahomes in terms of passing projection? No, but like, wouldn't it all shock you if Geno Smith next year with that assortment of weapons ended up giving you 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns? Like, I think that's in the range of outcomes. We saw it in Seattle in his first year as a starter there.
Yeah, no, again, the hardest thing about Brock Bowers to me is actually clicking the button on him, like at his price tag. Like, because even if, let's say,
at 19, it's a lot more palpable than top 15. I'll tell you that.
I have him ranked at 20, and one of the players I have ranked ahead of him doesn't go anywhere near where he goes, and that's Tyreek Hill. He goes 10 picks after him. It's just part of me goes, okay, let's say he's the highest ranked player on the board for me. Like, I'm on the clock at 20. In best ball, I can stomach it because he's an elite tight end. They give you a huge advantage and whatnot. But if we're talking specifically managed redraft formats, I think it's really difficult to click the button on the dude.
I think in managed redraft is more easy to click a tight end name.
I think it's easier to do it in best ball because there's no waiver wire.
I just frankly disagree because you're getting the certainty of the lineup fixture every single week as opposed to in best ball. I mean, we do have random weeks where a Cole Kmet type will score 2 touchdowns. You can kind of play the variance a little bit more.
In best ball.
You can't, correct.
And no waivers is why I actually like elite tight ends more in best ball.
Yeah. I mean, you can't trade, but I mean, you mentioned Tyreek Hill. Like, I think the odds are that Brock Bowers simply just straight up outscores him in half PPR this year.
Which I realize I'm totally on an island with that take. So
I like Tyreek.
I remove Tyreek from that discussion. Let's say he's the best available player for me, and he would be my 19th overall player at that point if I remove Tyreek from that discussion, because maybe I think I can get Tyreek in the 3rd round or something like that.
Yeah.
If he's my best available player and McConkey's gone and AJ's gone and Nico's gone and Drake's gone and those guys that go right ahead of him, I feel like I would just hate my pick overall. Like, I'd be like, I don't want to have to take Brock Bowers here because, as I'm going to talk about in the league winning tight ends video later this week, I just don't think that it's optimal to take a tight end early this year.
Maybe, but I mean, I will counter with the fact that Brock Bowers as a rookie last year literally outscored Tyreek Hill by almost 50 points. So it's like, you can't have him ranked.
But I don't expect Tyreek Hill to put up
I agree with that, but like, also, like, Bowers was a first-year tight end. You're getting that at tight end, and he outscored a potential regression risk receiver. Like, to me, that's a little bit too much. But if you want to say, hey, I won't take him in the top 15, but I'll take my shares once he's in that 20, 21 range, which according to ADP is very much going to start happening. I don't actually know when this flipped. Do you know when it flipped where he went from like a 15 point something ADP to now 19.1?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure when that change occurred. Like, I don't know when that happened because he wasn't going. There was no real news that surrounded Brock Bowers that would have caused him to drop an ADP.
Yeah, no, pretty weird to say the least. I mean, at the end of the day, though, 153 targets, 112 receptions for any rookie is very, very encouraging. When you get that at tight end, I mean, it's gravy.
Like, here's the tough thing I have with Brock Bowers. This is the tough thing for me. Yes, is he a positional advantage? Huge, massive. But among flex positions, removing quarterbacks, because obviously they score more points than wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends do, he was the 27th highest scoring player in fantasy last year. Do we want to take the 27th highest scoring player in fantasy last year? A year in which, like I said, the Raiders threw the ball a ton. They were very high pace of play. Do we want to take a player like that in the top 20 overall picks? I get he's a positional advantage. I get he was just a rookie and he could still get better and stuff. I tend to think his actual PPR point per game production is going to be about the same, which is going to be a huge positional advantage. I just don't think it's necessarily worth taking a 15 to 17 point per game projection where you have to take him.
Dude, he didn't even get the full routes until like week 4, and he was still dominant as a rookie.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 27th highest scoring ranked rated player as a rookie who didn't get the full allotment of routes till like week 4 and only scored 5 touchdowns, and he was 27th ranked. Could you imagine if he scores 8 or 9 and he gets those snaps from week 1? Like, dude, why can't he be the 9th highest scoring player in fantasy because he averaged 19 points per game?
Dude, he
like,
also
that's in the range of outcomes.
3 week 1 and 2 though in both of those. It's not like he wasn't on the field. Like, if there was a stretch where week 6 onward or something, he was like a full-time starter. He was still producing when he wasn't getting the full allotment of routes.
Sure, but I mean, you also have to acknowledge like some of those down weeks, specifically weeks 3 and 4. Like, after that, I mean, he had what?
He was a beast.
Down
He was an absolute beast. I get it.
Like, he had what? Fucking like 80% of his time after that being as a top 5 weekly tight end. Like, the guy's just absurd. He's had weeks with 12 targets, 10 targets, 14 targets, 16, 10, 14, 13. Like, this is the Malik Neighbors of tight ends, and we're getting that at a position where we can only count on 3 guys to be productive this year.
Yeah, he had 17.1 PPR points per game week 5 onward, and only George Kittle was better at 17.2. I guess that's also my major gripe with Brock Bowers is that
Kittle's
I would just rather take George Kittle 2.5 rounds later.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, it's not really 2.5 rounds later now because Brock Bowers' ADP's gotten lower, and now Kittle is like a top 32 overall pick on Underdog, and I think he's going to end up in the 20s.
I think you routinely will get him in the 4th round of managed redraft leagues, though, George Kittle.
I think the ADP is going to start changing as more people start because also keep worth noting, it's typically in casual leagues, tight ends actually go further higher up the board.
And not to mention people sort by last year's production, and Kittle was the tight end 1 in points per game last year.
So we'll see what ends up materializing. Ultimately, the question isn't, is Brock Bowers good? The question is, do we want Brock Bowers on our teams in fantasy? It just comes at the opportunity cost.
The answer for me is no. I think the opportunity cost is too high, given what I would look at opportunity bundle-wise versus George Kittle in round. Let's say at the 3-4 turn, 402, I'm going to take George Kittle versus at the 206 or whatever, I have to take Brock Bowers. Like, I think I would just rather take the opportunity bundles of the running back or wide receiver I get where Bowers goes, and then the George Kittle pick.
Yeah, and I guess for me, my cutoff line would be once Drake London's off the board, I'm willing to take Brock Bowers. So Drake London, my 15th overall player. Once he's off the board, I have Brock Bowers as 16 overall. So if that's the case, he's going 19 right now. He's one of my favorite values on the board.
Yeah, and notoriously, I just hate tight ends overall, and I like getting them late. Jayden Daniels, let's talk about some of the quarterbacks here. Daniels is the one who goes off the board first, obviously, because he finishes a 20-plus point per game score, league-winning quarterback. As I went over in the league winners video, the only rookie to do so, but Bo Nix was actually close to doing it. He was 19.4 PPR points per game. Jayden Daniels goes off the board just around that 3-4 turn range, 38.8 overall underdog ADP. 24.5 passing touchdowns is what he's slated for, 699.5 rushing yards, 3,500-ish or so.
The rushing yards, 699.5?
699.5 rushing yards, yeah.
We're smashing the higher on that this year.
I mean, you got to factor in that Jayden can kind of take too many hits and that kind of thing.
Sure, but as we'll point out to in a second, when the Commanders needed to win games down the stretch, how much of a Jayden show was it?
It was big. It was big. Like 20.93 points per game and finishes the QB6 in fantasy as a rookie. When you actually kind of do the game splits thing of after, like, because he wasn't like when the Buccaneers played him, for example, my team played him in week 1. He wasn't Jayden yet. He wasn't really Jayden until that Bengals game on that Monday night game where everyone was like, holy cow, who is this kid? And then from that point on, he was basically a 22, 23 point per game scorer.
Across that stretch, but even when you isolate, like, because keep in mind, like, obviously Washington, now we look back on the season, they made the NFC Championship, they had this great run, they're a team we expect to be back to the playoffs this year. If you recall, like, week 11, week 12, like, they weren't even expected to make a playoff spot. Like, they got hot at the right time. That's when it became the full Jayden Daniels show. And again, listen, don't take these splits at face value, because if you were to ask me straight up, Corey, do I expect Jayden Daniels to average 3 passing touchdowns per game this year? The answer is no. He's not going to throw 51 passing touchdowns across 2025. However, if he's at, 2 passing touchdowns per game, gets above the 30 range, we're looking at legitimately 2019 Lamar Jackson upside, because down the stretch in those 5 games, must-win games, 35 pass attempts nearly per game at 34.8 and 10.4 rush attempts per game. Yeah, we're looking at Jayden Daniels basically handling the ball, handling the Commanders' offense about 45 plays per game.
You know what's fucking hilarious? By the way, I'm trying to put in a game split for Jayden Daniels, and I accidentally clicked Z on my keyboard, and Zach Stacy was the player that loaded it. Of all players to load in there. So the reason I'm pulling this up is because there were 2 games in which Jayden Daniels did not play the full allotment of snaps from weeks 1 to 18. I think it was 7 against Carolina. He left early with a concussion, I think it was at the time. And then week 18 against the Cowboys, I think they rested their starters or something like that. If you pull out those games, he was 25.44 fantasy points a game.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Like obviously you started him against the Panthers and he kind of screwed you there, but like, I'm like, dude, how good was this guy? Like, I looked through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games of top 5 on the week.
Yeah. Like, again, like, once I actually looked in for this video and broke it down, like, I raised Jayden Daniels up my rankings. Initially, my take was he's fine at cost, 38th overall. Like, I think he's worth that cost. Dude, I have him ranked as a top 36 overall asset. I have him ranked right in a tier now with Allen and with Lamar Jackson as a top 3 quarterback. The upside is quite literally, like I said, what Lamar Jackson did this year, what 2019 Lamar Jackson did, because now he's also got a much better supporting cast. Keep in mind, 31.96 points per game down that stretch. Again, like I said, maybe he doesn't throw 3 touchdowns per game. That's close to the 2.2, which I think he can be at because he's an efficient quarterback, really showed himself as a passer. But he's now got Deebo Samuel. He's now got a top 5 at worst tackle in football with Laramie Tunsil. They draft a first-round offensive lineman with Josh Connerly. On top of that, Jayden Daniels cracked 20 points per game last year at 480 Washington Commanders passing attempts. If you guys see in the split down the stretch, 34.8 per game, that would equate to 592 across the season. So if we're getting Daniels potentially taking that step, 550, 575 plus pass attempts, while also being that dynamic as a rusher, like, he has to be your 3rd selected player, because if he's your 4th selected player, you're probably winning your league.
Yeah, no, especially when you factor in that the moves they made this offseason, going and getting a receiver, 2 offensive tackles, they're probably pointing to the fact that they maybe want to throw the ball a little bit more. And when you factor in all the veteran talent on that team and stuff, there's no reason why they can't really just kind of pick up where they left off, because, Ertz and Eckler and Debo and those guys, they know what they're doing. It's not like we're going to have a whole lot of growing pains. And there's a little bit more outlets there. And obviously the rushing of Jayden Daniels is going to help really, really carry him. Those 10.4 rush attempts per game, 76 rushing yards per game down the stretch. It's actually hilarious, because when I talked about this in the league winning quarterbacks video, I knew this was going to be the case. I knew this was going to be my takeaway, but I have Hurts, Daniels, Lamar, and Allen inside my top 36 overall players. My next rated quarterback, Joe Burrow, is outside my top 60.
It's those 3 and those 4 and the rest. Because like you said, I have so those 3 top guys, Allen, Lamar, Daniels, 31 to 33. But I also have Hurts ranked at 39. So they're all top 40 ranked players for me. And then after that, like you said, between Jalen Hurts quarterback 4 and Joe Burrow quarterback 5, you're legitimately looking at the difference of 20 plus spots.
Yeah, be willing to take these guys. That's one thing I'm starting to take away from this quarterback range is be willing to take these guys. Best ball, nobody has a higher weekly ceiling than these dual threat quarterbacks. You can't, there's in week 17, would it shock you if the BBM winner, it's not possible to win the contest unless you have whichever of these 4 quarterbacks had the 40 bomb? That was the case 2 years ago when Lamar Jackson had the 40-point game in week 17. And
I got to start building some more early quarterback teams is what this study.
I'm too low on these guys right now.
I have way too much low ownership.
I'm at 10.2% Hurts, so I'm fine there. Josh, I got 4.1%. That's a little too low.
Guess what, by the way? It's the perfect time to be able to do so, because where I was taking Rashee Rice, now I can just take a quarterback, and maybe Rashee Rice falls back to me where the quarterback would have went anyways.
Yeah, I only have 4.1% Lamar and Allen, only 2% Jayden Daniels, and 10% Jalen Hurts. So I need to click these guys in the 3rd round a little bit more often. Agreed. Because as much as I love those late round quarterbacks and taking 3 quarterbacks and that kind of build,
these guys are different.
These guys might make it impossible to win BBM. It's possible that any one of these 4 quarterbacks has a 46-point performance in week 17.
But that's the thing. Wouldn't it all shock you this year if 4 quarterbacks scored above 25 points per game and then the quarterback 5 on the year was at 19.6?
No, it wouldn't shock me. And it wouldn't shock me if QB 5, let's say it's Joe Burrow, and QB 17, Brock Purdy, are 3 points apart or 2.5 points apart.
Well, that's the thing. It's dude, I could see a bigger gap between quarterback 1 or quarterback 4 to 5 in points per game than I could potentially between quarterback 5 and 12 or 13.
Yeah. And in managed formats, I think Lamar and Allen might need to go in the 2nd round. Legitimately. Once Ladd and Bowers,
I think Daniels is right there, man.
Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Tyreek, those are my next rated players. You could make the argument that you should take Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson over them.
I agree. I was fading a lot of early quarterbacks, but knowing now, just I love these late round quarterbacks, and I will have a ton of late round quarterback teams, but I am scared shitless that if I don't have enough early quarterback build teams, I can't even compete in the dance in week 17.
Yeah, no, what I want my exposure to look like is 2 to 4% of the QBs 6 to 10 in ADP, and then 10% of the top quarterbacks in ADP, and then a shit ton of exposure to the late round quarterbacks, because, those Dak Purdy, Matthew Stafford teams,
money
they're still gonna crack. They're still gonna cook, especially like you got to pray on your hands and knees. We don't get a 45 bomb from one of these top guys, and then that late round quarterback trio or whatever duo that you have will probably fry. But anyways, let's talk about
because the beauty of it. Let's just say, for example, you're planning on creating that Cowboys Commanders game stack week 17, and your option is you got CeeDee Lamb in the second round. You're eyeing in the third round between Daniels versus McLaurin. I'm taking Daniels 100% of the time there because guess what? As much like Dak, if Dak were to pay off, it would mean that, CeeDee Lamb already paid off. George Pickens already paid off, vice versa. If I have CeeDee Lamb in that stack, maybe Dak has a good game, 240 yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever, but it all goes to CeeDee Lamb. What if Daniels on the other end rushes in 2 touchdowns and just outscores everybody on the field?
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. And when you factor in who those teams are all playing, Ravens, Packers, I mean, that could be a high-scoring game. It is in Green Bay, so that could be a low-scoring game to keep in mind for Lamar.
Bills, Eagles
going to be a high-scoring game, like you just made reference to. Cowboys, Commanders probably also going to be a very high-scoring game. And then, Bills and Eagles are playing each other. So
that's pretty hilarious.
And that one is in Buffalo. So, I mean, I guess if you really think about it, of the 4 elite quarterbacks, Jayden's the only one in a dome and good weather.
Counterpoint. Josh Allen might rush in like 3 or 4 touchdowns.
He might, dude. Between
how many rushing times in that game?
4.5 for the quarterbacks is the over/under.
It's going to be like a negative 20 degrees Celsius game in Buffalo. Snow's falling, and we're seeing 5 rushing touchdowns between those two.
But if you really do think about it, though, you could argue that nobody in Week 17, because of the matchups and the weather conditions potentially of those other quarterbacks, that nobody has a higher ceiling in that projection than Jayden Daniels. Like he'll be probably my QB1 in Week 17 when we're doing weekly rankings for the playoffs.
Yep, agreed. Which, based off that thought alone, I definitely need to up my exposure. Sorry. You mentioned the quarterback mid-range. So obviously, like the later range, once you get to like the quarterbacks like 11 on, we love the values there. But specifically in like the quarterback 5 to 10 range, top 100 picks, one of the final names off the list there would be a second-year quarterback that you just mentioned was almost pacing Jayden Daniels down the stretch.
Yeah, he's QB 8 points per game on the season too.
Yeah, and he's going off the board quarterback 9 despite being a second-year player.
When I did the league-winning quarterbacks video, there's pretty much not a single box that Bo Nix doesn't check, legitimately. And that usually results in good stuff. Because if you think about it, to be a league-winning quarterback, I'll let you say check or no check. And some of these, remember, you can either check it, it's questionable, maybe you're smashing that, or it's like you're not going to check that box. You expect the Broncos to be about a top 10 offense in points per game this year?
That would be like a yellow if I were to do the league-winning quarterback.
They are currently projected as where is Denver? Denver. They are projected as the 13th best offense.
Yeah. So it'd be about a yellow in your grading cycle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Would you say that they're a top 12 offensive line in pass blocking specifically?
I would say so. They were one of
they are a top 3 offensive line in pass blocking according to PFF and Brandon Thorne and some of those places. So you got a green in that category.
Yeah.
Deep ball attempts per game might shock you. Second in the NFL, Bo Nix last year. Deep ball attempts per game.
If I remember correctly, that Denver offense was literally just screens and shots.
Exactly. Red zone.
Hey, what did that remind you of, by the way? His time in Oregon.
That's what he did at Oregon as well. And specifically to Franklin. Let's get some more of those hitting. I mean, ranking QBR, he was a top 10 quarterback in QBR as a rookie last year. Red zone combined attempts, passing and rushing, he was there. He met the threshold that you need to meet because he was running the ball in the red zone. Rank in neutral pace of play. Care to guess what the Denver Broncos were in neutral pace of play last year?
Neutral pace of play? I mean, top 8?
They were 4th.
4th?
Yeah, and then pass offense DVOA is usually quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, who's efficient, who like weapons essentially, who has supporting cast around you. And the Broncos were a top 10 offense and pass offense DVOA last year. So, dude, volume wise too, he met most of the volume stats, other than the fact he's not going to quite get to the rush attempts per game that Lamar or Jalen Hurts or somebody like that is. There's not much he doesn't check, honestly.
Yeah, no, he's definitely I would say a safe projection this year. On top of that, I mean, he really, to me, feels like one of the safer quarterback picks. I think there's a couple quarterbacks that I prefer the ultimate ceiling to behind him. I mean, we'll talk about one in a second. But at the end of the day, I mean, I have him ranked as my quarterback 9. He goes quarterback 9, and honestly, I think his range of outcomes this year is probably between like quarterback 5 versus quarterback like 12. I would say I'd be shocked if he wasn't a quarterback 1 in points per game.
Dude, he's my quarterback 7. Like. I got him really high. And here's also why I actually like selecting Bo Nix, because generally most of the why are you selecting the quarterback comes down to who else is on the board. You know what round he goes in? The worst round of fantasy drafts possible, which is the 9th round, where there's no good wide receivers left. There's no good running backs left. You're deciding between pulling up a David Njoku or a Tyler Warren at tight end or drafting Bo Nix. And to me, it's like, yeah, could I wait 3 rounds and get Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, or Jordan Love, who I also really like, who I have in the same tier as Bo Nix? And will I probably still do that? Yes. But I have him ranked ahead of Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield since the Tristan Wirfs news, because I really do think that he is as clean of a projection as you can get.
Yeah, no, and I think that's reasonable. And honestly, I think I'm going to bump Kyler Murray down a little bit because
Murray's ceiling is higher, obviously, because of the ultimate rushing. But I can argue that Bo Nix rushing right now and Kyler Murray's rushing right now.
That's what I'm saying. I was looking at I bumped Kyler Murray down to 9 because I was looking at the rushing splits. And I mean, we're kind of just over narrativing. I mean, I don't even know if that's a word. Comment down below if that's a word. It's probably not a word. Contributing too much to the narrative that's a way better way to phrase it. Kyler Murray is just this rushing demon. He hasn't been that rushing demon in a while, to be honest.
Yeah, 4.6 carries per game for Kyler Murray, 0.7 of those in the red zone. Last year, Bo Nix, 5.4 carries per game and 1.1. Yeah. He was actually a better rusher, more volume rusher than Kyler Murray. You know, in a vacuum, if I need 10 yards, would I think Kyler Murray could probably get me at better than Bo Nix? Yes, because he's a more talented rusher. But rushing tendency-wise, Bo Nix actually run the ball more.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, realistically, we keep giving the Kyler this narrative like, oh, he's such an elite rushing quarterback. It's like, dude, he hasn't been that since 2020.
Yeah, I have him QB 9, right behind Mayfield and
he's quarterback 10 last year. I don't think you can drop him too far.
No, because he's been a QB 1 every year of his career. Yeah. But generally speaking, I don't think it's a lock that he needs to be like some monster, QB. We have to draft him QB 6 or something because he has this high ceiling. He does have a high ceiling. It's just he's going to need to pass the ball a lot better to get to it.
Yeah, I mean, like straight up, like when you're scoring 819 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns, it's like, okay. Career high 26 passing touchdowns, like that'll work. Like that is the ceiling.
That's what Jalen does.
Basically. But if you're gonna give us 500 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, we need more than 26 touchdowns and 3,900 yards.
Bro, that's 150 yards more than Brock Purdy had last year. Like we're not talking about a huge rushing volume at that point. Like if Jordan Love is gonna pass for 1,000 more passing yards and like 7 more touchdowns, he's gonna smoke Kyler Murray, even if Kyler runs 200 more yards than him.
Yeah. No, I would agree there for sure. Off of Kyler Murray, we've just been kind of slandering him. That just kind of goes to show you that both of us now have Bo Nix rated higher than him. We'll head on to a quarterback that I am admittedly higher on than you are. I have currently as my quarterback 10 in fantasy. I'm assuming you probably have him like 13, 14.
He's at 14 for me. And the next guy that we'll talk about is at 13, just ahead of him.
Yep, which is fair. Again, I have those guys 10 and 11 back-to-back, funny enough. But Caleb Williams, quarterback 1 of the 2024 class, quarterback 12 off the board, 109 overall ADP. You guys can see the pick and projections right now, 424.5 rushing yards and 3,599.5 passing yards. And for the prospect caliber that he was, not really the season that we wanted to see from him in year 1. However, I mean, I've been pointing it out all offseason. We can't really take much merit from what we saw from the Chicago Bears in 2024. It seemed like everybody in that offense had a down year. DJ Moore had literally almost 1,400 receiving yards the year prior. Shane Waldron comes in. He has his worst season as a pro. Rome Odunze, top 10 pick, top 3 overall wide receiver in his class. Kind of a down year based off our expectations for him. However, we go into this offseason. Any concerns we could have had for the scheme with Shane Waldron, erase. You don't worry about it anymore. Ben Johnson, he's going to be the guy that we're looking for. He's going to provide a lot of offensive stability. He was the #1 head coaching candidate in the cycle for a reason. What do they do this offseason after hiring him? They fortify the offensive line. 3 starting caliber linemen brought in this offseason, Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson to really man up that interior. On top of that, I mean, you had 2 high-end weapons in the passing game, one with a top 10 pick with Colson Loveland, one with a top 40 pick there with Luther Burden. And on top of that, I mean, Rome Odunze is going into year 2, and who knows, maybe DJ Moore himself does bounce back, given the efficiency we saw 2 years ago as opposed to last year. So realistically, I'm looking at this situation. It's all on Caleb. If Caleb is the prospect and the talent that I think he is, he will succeed in this spot. And if he doesn't succeed, maybe he wasn't the talent that I thought he was.
Yeah, I would say his season, if he has a great year, probably looks very similar actually to Kyler Murray's 3rd season, which is Kyler Murray in his 3rd season only played 14 games, but was pacing about 600 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns, give or take, because he had 423 and 5 in 14 games. And then pacing about 4,000 yards, give or take, just a little bit above that, pacing about 26, 27 touchdowns. And then he had, I think, 10 or 11 interceptions in 14 games. So, I mean, that would be a pretty good season for Caleb Williams. And I've kind of also refocused my comp for Caleb Williams coming out of school was Kyler Murray. I do think that Kyler Murray and him are both very similarly gifted physically. I think that maybe Kyler's a slightly better rusher, but I think Caleb's slightly better passer. So it's a pretty interesting topic of conversation. Like, we obviously know how he gets there. It's the offensive line improvements. It's the weapons all gelling together. It's Ben Johnson, the architect of everything. And most importantly, Caleb playing a lot better.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because literally in that season, as opposed to Caleb as a rookie, keep this in mind. Like, people thought, okay, well, Caleb Williams, like, there was no glimmer of hope. But it's like, well, Caleb Williams averaged 28.8 rushing yards per game last year. Kyler Murray in that third season was at 30.2. So it's like, if he could be within that type of striking distance of Kyler Murray, while also having a higher passing ceiling because of the weapons the Bears have, having the attachment to Ben Johnson, who, again, I'm not saying Jared Goff's a bad quarterback. However, Jared Goff, a few years ago before Ben Johnson came in versus afterwards, I mean, look at just the overall striking numbers he saw in Detroit.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. It's Caleb. I don't think people realize how he might be a 507 type of guy on the ground. I think that's the underrated part about Caleb Williams. I'm still somewhat of I think it's a coin flip that this guy, hits and has like a really good season this year, because it is ultimately up to him to play better than he played last year. And again, the infrastructure around him is significantly better than it was last year. But if he does hit, this isn't a small win. Like, when he hits, like it's a 20 to 23 point per game guy if he hits.
Yeah, I mean, we just mentioned like who can actually bridge the gap from to the top four quarterbacks to quarterback five. Like, Caleb is a candidate because he does give you that plus as a rusher, and if he does unlock that ceiling as a passer, like, I think there's meat left on the bone here for him to legitimately be a 4,200 yard passer, 30 plus passing touchdowns, while, like you said, giving you that tetherment of a 500 rushing yard, 5 to 7 rushing touchdown type of projection.
Yeah, the only questions I had about him in terms of the league-winning quarterback exercise was the Bears and Lions too, because that's obviously where Ben Johnson is coming from. Not a very high-paced offense. They usually like to, bleed the clock a little bit. And the rank at QBR. I don't know how good Caleb is.
Yeah. It's funny enough, though, in terms of the overall plays, the pace of play that you just mentioned there, he doesn't have the tetherment of a David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to really establish that run game. Like, unless DeAndre Swift's going to be a 300 carry type of player, they have to throw the football.
You kind of have to be like either super in on DeAndre Swift or
super in on Caleb in the passing game.
Yeah, you got to be.
I know where I am.
Caleb, and unless you think that somehow this team is just going to be a complete and utter mellifluous mess.
That's a nice word.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I used it correctly, to be honest. I might cut that out if I didn't.
You can leave it in.
The Bears are projected right now. Let me see where their projection is. The Bears are projected like smack dab in the middle of the league, like 15th in points per game right now. Like the Dolphins, the Texans, the Jags, the Vikings, Cowboys are around where they're projected.
Yeah, which if that's the case, I mean, give me all the Caleb Williams that I can get. Quarterback 10, like I said, where I have him. If you do want to take the guy we're about to talk about next ahead of him, I'm perfectly fine with it. I think really the difference here is we mentioned the only cause for concern with Caleb would it be him reaching the prospect status we had for him. That's not a concern for Drake Maye. I think Drake Maye is already on a superstar level trajectory. Yes, if you guys are new to the channel, I said superstar level trajectory. I think there's a possible scenario we're talking about this guy as one of the 5 to 7 best quarterbacks on earth after the year. The issue, though, is unlike Caleb, you don't have a Ben Johnson. You don't have, a fortified offensive line. You don't have an elite pass catching weapons group, Loveland, Burden. You don't have guys like that. What you do have, though, you bring in Stephon Diggs, you have Hunter Henry, decent tight end there, and you have what could potentially be an all-world receiving back there with Trevion Henderson. That is the makeup of your passing game, just simply not what the Bears have at their arsenal.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing with both of these guys, because first of all, the guys I have immediately ranked, because they're 13 and 14 for me, the guys I've immediately ranked ahead, you can actually take these guys first, Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, if it's an underdog draft or if it's a home league draft, and then double back, because them 3 quarterbacks immediately I have ranked ahead of them are Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. So what you could do, if you really wanted to, fill out your running back core in a managed league, fill out your wide receiver core, grab a tight end before round 10 or so, where these guys start to go off the board. Grab yourself a Drake Maye, grab yourself a Dak Prescott the next round, play Dak Prescott at the beginning of the year, and then once if Drake Maye's taken that big step forward, you can continue to play him and maybe trade Dak or drop Dak or whatever you got to do. So
don't drop Dak.
That's my favorite strategy in quarterback at the quarterback position in managed leagues period this year is get a Love, get a Purdy, get a Dak, get a Lawrence, get somebody who you feel pretty confident in early in the season, and then swing on a Drake, swing on Caleb, swing on the next guy that we're going to talk about and the guy after that we're going to talk about. So yeah, these second-year quarterbacks or the rookie too in Cam Ward, plus one of these veterans who you feel pretty confident can give you back-end QB1 production. Yeah. Such a great strategy. And back-end QB1 production, by the way, in the games that Drake Maye had over 10 pass attempts, meaning removing the Jets game when he left early with a concussion, the first Jets game where he came in midway through the game, and then the Bills game in week 18 where he threw one pass attempt, 19.78 points per game, which was better than Bo Nix produced and almost a 20-point per game guy just behind Jared Goff and those type of guys. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who already was a QB1 with Danny and I playing both the tackle spots, with Danny and I catching passes from him and, Spicy Hot calling plays. Like, we got an upgrade. Josh McDaniels is an offensive coordinator, upgrade. Will Campbell, Morgan Moses on the offensive tackle position, upgrade. And you also got Danny putting on a helmet for some reason. And you also got Stephon Diggs, Kyle Williams coming in at wide receiver. So Drake Maye, and by the way, also projected for over 400, higher than 424 rushing yards too. He's going to run the ball too.
I was just showing the lads the helmet I wore when I volunteered for the Pats last year,
Yeah, facts.
All jokes aside, though, like you said, I mean, I do think the situation is going to get better. Have you talked about the Vegas line as well? 8.5 wins.
Yeah. And like Vrabel's just a much better coach. McDaniel's a much better offensive coordinator. Again, like his rushing yardage total in games where he was like the starting quarterback, you got to give him 38 rushing yards, 46 rushing yards, 95 rushing yards, like 59 rushing yards, like 30, 32. Like this is a guy that averages about, like we said, a Kyler Murray prime as far as rushing yards. Is he going to get the, 8 to 10 touchdowns that Kyler was giving you in his prime? Probably not, but 5-6 rushing touchdowns is going to up his value. And again, would you rather, between Caleb and Drake, would you rather have a guy who was a 15, 16 point per game producer last year, but has all the weapons, all the offensive coordinator and all the offensive line help that he needs to get to 20? Or would you rather have a guy who pretty much was at 20 last year and only got marginally better, but as a young player should get better as a player too?
Yeah, I would definitely say the 80th percentile range of outcome is going to favor Drake Maye because we already saw him be so productive last year. It's just the access to the high end ceiling. I just simply don't think Maye can get to that ceiling given the supporting cast in relation to the Bears. But it's not to say I don't love both these guys. In fact, I actually have Maye one spot higher in Dynasty because I'm more confident in that starting ability to be that superstar level quarterback given both of their rookie years. But both of them, I mean, if they both hit, they're superstar quarterbacks that give you about 30 plus rushing yards per game. That's a cheat code.
Yeah, and relative to like league winning quarterback exercise discussions, only six times of the last, 11 years since 2013 that I've been doing that exercise, did a league-winning quarterback come from outside the top 15 quarterbacks in ADP as well. So like Baker was an example of that last year where way down the board in ADP, you got Baker and he was super, super good. But most of the time, if the guy's going top 15 in ADP, he's going there for a reason. It means he has the ceiling. And both Drake Maye and Caleb Williams are going higher than quarterback 15 in ADP.
Yeah, and a guy that's going just outside of that range at quarterback 16. But as I mentioned for Caleb, has the infrastructure in place, given the landing spot, to really, truly blossom if he is that quarterback. JJ McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, go blue, big Michigan fan here. He goes 10th overall last year. We were both excited in the preseason. I mean, we were talking about the fact that, he's making splash play after splash play. What's it going to look like in season? Unfortunately, in that first preseason game, ends up tearing his meniscus, required surgery, ends up missing his entire rookie season. But I would say we're even more confident about this situation based off what we saw in lieu of the McCarthy injury. Sam Darnold, journeyman quarterback, steps onto the scene, quarterback 9, 18.12 point per game season. There's a reason why we're excited. You get Jefferson, you get Addison, you get Hawkinson, you get an improving offensive line, especially too with Ryan Kelly, Will Fries coming over. And on top of that, I mean, we mentioned, the tetherment to a guy like Ben Johnson. Well, we're getting the tetherment to a guy like Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota as well.
Yeah, it's the other thing that's underrated about drafting late round quarterbacks too is what he is quarterback will always be on the waiver wire in managed leagues. Like, you need Matthew Stafford? Well, he'll be on the waiver wire. You need Geno Smith? He'll be on the waiver wire. JJ McCarthy is like the year 2 Jordan, or the year 3, I guess, Jordan Love, first year as a starter, Jordan Love bet all over again, which is that we believe in the offense, we believe in the coordinator, we believed in the weapons that year. We'll just kind of wait and see what happens with the quarterback, who we don't have a whole lot of information on, which is true of JJ McCarthy. But given what we just saw what Sam Darnold did, like, would it shock any of us if JJ McCarthy had 19.7 points per game and was quarterback 7 in fantasy?
No, and it shouldn't, because, I mean, if I were to ask you last year who had the higher seasonal ceiling between Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy, fresh after JJ going top 10 in the NFL draft and Sam Darnold signing a bridge backup type of deal with Minnesota last offseason, everybody and their mother would have said, oh yeah, no, JJ McCarthy, higher ceiling fantasy quarterback. So the fact that we have evidence that in this system with this personnel, and in fact, a worse offensive line last year, Sam Darnold was already top 10, already 18 plus points per game. Like, if you were already believing in JJ McCarthy, what's stopping you from being 100% ownership in him already?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that he really burns me specifically. I haven't been drafting him, and a part of it is I think that the injury might be a little bit of an underrated thing with him. That he might, re-aggravate.
They haven't really insulated themselves with.
Yeah, they haven't really talked about it much either. Like, they haven't really said, oh, he's 100% ready to go for week 1. He's going to be ready for training camp. Sam Howell's their backup quarterback who's played games in the NFL, who can get them through a pinch or whatever. I would imagine if McCarthy missed the first 3 games of the year, or maybe he re-aggravated at some point during the season. I guess that's my only hang up with McCarthy in best ball, is that I'm not 100% sure I'm going to get 17 games out of this guy.
It is funny, though, that they go from one turnover prone Sam to another one that eats sacks.
Yeah, no, that's my only hang up in best ball, really, is that McCarthy, I think, I don't know if I'd count 17 games from him.
Yeah, which is fair. I mean, if we could, I definitely think he'd be more expensive than quarterback 16 because of that unknown factor in its own right. Like, if you were to just say he's fully healthy, he will play 17 games, and Sam Darnold was just the quarterback 9, quarterback 16 actually makes no sense when you actually.
Right, but when I factor in where, like, Drake Maye is going and where Caleb's
for sure
going and some of those guys, like, I think it's a little bit too rich to say that JJ McCarthy should be more expensive than he currently is. I think all of his upside, realistically, not all of it, but like some of his upside is pretty baked into his cost right now.
No, and I agree, but I mean, you look at the pick-up projection, you look at everything surrounding it, like, he's literally got a higher projection than both Maye and Caleb Williams. So theoretically, it's like the market would rank him above those guys if they had full certainty he'd play 17 games. I think that is baked in a little bit. However, like you, I agree. I would just take Caleb Williams and Drake Maye because I had higher prospect grades on them, and I like both their situations. Maybe not as much as the Vikings, but
where I'm getting my exposure to McCarthy is in Dynasty and also in a managed league. If you grab Dak Prescott in the 11th round, grab McCarthy in the 13th to stash some upside. Best ball is the one place I'm kind of wary of him.
Yeah,
just because I don't want to take in a format where you don't want to take zeros at quarterback and walk into injuries and stuff. He kind of, if I do take him, which I actually have not once, I have 0% right now, which I kind of want to change for sure. But I think he's the 3 quarterback build type of quarterback where I would.
Yeah, he definitely is.
I would want to have like let's say I grab Purdy and him, and then I grab Stafford later, or Geno or Rodgers or something later. I probably want to have a 3rd quarterback with him.
Yeah, it's also pretty tough because if you grab your 1 quarterback and you're like, oh, I'm just going to grab a cheap quarterback too, it's like, well, he's not really cheap right now because unfortunately you'll notice if you don't take a quarterback too, let's just say you grab a Hurts, you grab a Daniels, you grab one of those top 4 guys. If you don't grab your quarterback 2 in like round 12 or round 13, by the time you pick in round 14, they will literally all be gone. Like, you'll look at, it went from having 7 quarterbacks they feel comfortable to now all 7 gone. It's like Sam Darnold is the best quarterback on the board unless you prefer like Aaron Rodgers to him. Yeah.
The other thing that factors in with JJ and why I haven't taken him a lot is that I don't draft Jefferson very often. And the Vikings are 9th projected in points, or sorry, they were 9th in points per game last year, and they are projected 22nd in points per game this year, which is obviously part of a factor. Obviously Vegas was really wrong about them last year, and that's factored in, but I don't know. Part of me thinks I might have been a year too early on the whole, like, maybe I should not quite invest into this offense super, super heavy.
Hey, I mean, like, people might murder us in the comments when we tell them that Jefferson's our 7th ranked player, both.
Yeah. People might murder us, like you said. Let's talk about Michael Penix, who is going off the board, quarterback 21, 142nd overall ADP on Underdog. I draft him a lot more than I draft McCarthy because I do think it's pretty similar. Like my level of belief in each player. Like I think that both of them should be going around the same range, but they're not. McCarthy goes quite a bit higher.
I think the Vikings are a much better situation, and I thought JJ McCarthy was a much better prospect.
That's really fine. I don't disagree with you. I think McCarthy should be going ahead of him. I just don't think it should be about a 20 pick discrepancy. I think it should be a little bit closer in ADP.
I do think there should be this discrepancy because I do think it's a cleaner passing situation in terms of the weapons, in terms of the offensive line. And I also think he's not a complete negative as a rusher. I'm not even saying as like a zero. Like
Penix rushed for 11 yards.
Yeah, he's a zero. He fumbles one game, you're getting negative points for that.
Like, you know pretty much. But anyways, 3,399.5 passing yards is his projection right now. Among quarterbacks with 100 plus dropbacks in 2025, Michael Penix was 4th in PFF passing grade, only behind Lamar Jackson, Burrow, Justin Herbert, 87.6. 15th with 7.4 yards per attempt, 4th lowest turnover-worthy play rate at 1.7%. So he's taking care of the football, obviously. And he led all quarterbacks with a 9% big-time throw rate. So it's pretty hard to have the highest big-time throw rate and the 4th lowest turnover-worthy play rate in the same quarterback. So to me, that's pretty impressive. I know it was bad defenses, and I've brought up that point before, and his completion percentage was terrible. It was 58%, and he had just 11 rushing yards in his 3 starts. But offensive coordinator Zach Robinson has been kind of beating this drum all offseason that his ability to stretch the field gives them something different than what they had with Kirk Cousins. He's a gunslinger, man. Coming out of the draft last year, among college football quarterbacks in 2023, he had 33 more deep attempts than the next closest Power 5 quarterback, which ironically was Drake Maye in the same class. So, I mean, he's a young gunslinger. He's got pretty good weapons. Like I think Drake London's a top 10 receiver, top 12 receiver in the league. Darnell Mooney's a very solid number 2. I don't think we're going to get anything from Kyle Pitts, but maybe we do. Great offensive line, one of the best 5 to 10 units in football. Super high pace of play. Deep ball, red zone attempts through the air, I think can carry him to a QB1 finish. I have him ranked ahead of CJ Stroud. Like I think he has a very similar projection to Stroud, only with a better offensive line and, better kind of situation at the moment. So I actually have been drafting Penix because in the 140s where he goes, I'm not getting as many good options. Like where McCarthy goes, he goes ahead of like Tyler Warren.
I mean, what is their difference in ADP right now? If I take
20,
a look,
but to me,
is it that much?
Yeah, it's 122.4 versus 142.1. So it's exactly 20 picks.
Okay. Because I got okay. I still like McCarthy more. Obviously at cost, I think it's reasonable if you would rather wait 2 rounds. The one thing I will say though, it's funny enough, the one guy that you didn't compare Penix to that I actually think is like his pro comp at this point, Geno Smith. And Geno Smith, to me, it's a very comparable situation. So with Geno Smith, it's like you're getting more untapped upside with Penix. I understand why he's more expensive, but I do think like the median range of outcomes, Geno Smith is higher. It's just, of course, the best.
I think Stroud is his high end.
You think Stroud is Penix's high end? I do not see that at all.
Like again, Penix goes.
I don't see that.
At pick 142. The guys going around him are handcuff running backs like Benson and White and Isaac Guerrero. The tight ends that go around him are like Dallas Goedert, Isaiah Likely. The wide receivers, Quentin Johnson, Cedric Tillman, versus JJ McCarthy goes around David Njoku, Tyler Warren, Luther Burden, Tucker Kraft. Like those are just better picks.
We're not talking about the opportunity cost. We're just talking about like Penix versus Stroud versus Geno. I don't think he's got Stroud in his range.
Yeah, I don't know.
Real life quarterback or
what does Stroud do better? Like what's his best quality?
Real life or fantasy?
Real life.
Oh, okay, so you're actually saying Penix could be as good as Stroud in real life?
Yeah, I do.
What's Stroud's 10 times more accurate?
He is. But what is his his other best quality to me is that he has like that ratio of big time throws to turnover worthy throws is very high for CJ Stroud because he can make really good throws and he also avoids negative throws a lot, and that's what Penix does really well too.
Yeah, 4 games.
That was true of his college profile as well, not just at his NFL start.
I mean, we both agreed that he sprayed it a lot more than a lot of people wanted.
He did, yeah. Accuracy was an issue. Accuracy was definitely an issue. That's where he doesn't become Stroud.
He's a big game hunter. Dude, when I say Geno Smith, it's not a negative. I think Geno Smith's a top 15 quarterback in the league. If he becomes Geno Smith, I think the Falcons are fucking celebrating because Geno Smith's a $35 million per year quarterback right now.
Yeah, and if he was a 25-year-old Geno Smith, that would also be a lot better than a 35-year-old Geno Smith or however old he is right now.
Yeah, it was more so just pointing out, like, I think Geno Smith versus him is a comparable conversation, but the reason why he's 20 picks more expensive is because he's a young player entering year 2. There's more meat left on the bone.
Yeah, for sure. Again, all I'm saying is of these 6 rookie quarterbacks, who are you drafting the most at cost? Like, let's say from best ball and also redraft separately, like 2 different answers probably.
Well, let me check my ownership percentage. That'll probably give you the best gauge on that. So in terms of these quarterbacks, I am drafting Drake Maye at the highest at 13.8%. Who else? Caleb's pretty high. Bo Nix, I have a little bit less than usual just because I've been taking the cheaper options of that range. I don't have a lot of Penix though. Maybe I will draft a little bit more Penix. Ultimately, though, I mean, the main concentration of my quarterbacks is really just like the cheaper pocket passers and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I have drafted Penix the most of this group. I have not been drafting these second-year quarterbacks a lot in general. My highest drafted one is Penix at 10%. I am right at market of Caleb and Drake at 8.2%. And then JJ I have not drafted once, unfortunately. I want to get some more shares of him, obviously, but I'm not super excited about where he goes relative to the other players that go there. Bo Nix, I have 6%, and Jayden Daniels, I only have 2% or whatever right now. I definitely want to get my Jayden up for sure.
For sure. But those are the quarterbacks. I mean, we just may mention, these last 2 tight ends. No notes on these guys.
I mean, we could include Ben Sinnott in this as well.
Ben Sinnott as well.
Jatavian Sanders, tight end of the Carolina Panthers. Theo Johnson, tight end of the New York Giants. And Ben Sinnott, tight end of the Washington Commanders. All were the tight end 2 through 4, give or take, in the draft last year.
I guess the question for you is, out of these 3 tight ends, because we don't have to spend much time on them as a whole, but out of these 3 tight ends, who are you drafting the most?
Well, Sanders is the one that goes routinely drafted. Like, he gets drafted in every draft pretty much because he goes inside basically around pick 200. And he is the one I'm drafting the most, if I'm not mistaken. If I look at my exposure right now, I have JT Sanders 8.2%. I have Theo Johnson only 2%. And I have Ben Sinnott. I've not drafted him once because he doesn't go really drafted at all.
Well, because Zach Ertz is there too. It's pretty weird.
I know. And you might be like, oh, you should be drafting Ben Sinnott. It's the Trey McBride situation all over again.
We did that last year.
Yeah, like we drafted a lot of Ben Sinnott last year. I think JT Sanders and Theo specifically have a better chance to start for their teams right away and be the starting tight end of their team. But JT actually, before his like gruesome neck injury that he had last year, was really starting to put together some decent route participation, target shares, stuff like that. And I do think JT Sanders was a better prospect than how he tested. So we'll see what happens with him. I think that Carolina's offense is pretty wide open with, target competition outside of Ted McMillan. So I think JT Sanders, it wouldn't shock me if he had a breakout season and he was like, maybe not this year's Jonnu Smith and that he finishes tight end 4 in points per game, but if he's a mid tight end 1, back end tight end 1, like a Cade Otton, for example, from last year, wouldn't shock me if he had like 605.
I might have to start drafting more Theo Johnson as well. Before he got hurt, so he didn't play weeks 14 through 18. I believe he probably got added to IR in that stretch. Again, I don't have the confirmation.
Yeah, he have like a weird injury.
I know he had a foot injury. He suffered surgery for. So it got placed on IR early December. Before that, though, dude, keep in mind, day 3 tight end. He was legitimately an 80+% snap share in like 80% of his games.
Yeah.
For the Giants.
Yeah, like the last week, what was this? Week 9, 10, 12, and 13 before his injury. He also had at least 4 targets in every single game as well, and was above a 57% route participation in both of them too.
What's the one thing we always quote from Malik Neighbors for why he should dominate targets?
Because there's nobody there.
So if Theo Johnson can get these snaps and goes into year 2 as a 6'6", 265-pound athletic freak, like, there's opportunity for him to be, I'm not going to say he's going to be the number 2 target on this team, but like, can he have like a 75 target year, an 80 target year, and be efficient in the red zone area because he's 6'6", 265?
Yeah, I mean, he had 331 yards last year as only playing, would he only play 12 games and like was kind of not really a factor for the majority of the year? Like,
I gotta start drafting more Theo Johnson, bro. Why is he a scroll the F down?
He kind of is a scroll the F down, honestly. I'm not totally opposed to this. He was 9th among all tight ends in snap share last year.
11.41 yards per reception, 7.7 yards per target too, is pretty efficient as a rookie.
Top 12 in route participation among tight ends last year.
Also, wasn't he literally the most, like the single most athletic tight end recorded in combine history?
Yeah, he was. I mean, it's
So
because he's big too. It's not just that he's like ran fast or whatever, but for his size, he ran really fast and was really athletic. So
he
yeah,
ran in
maybe
the
we got to slow
4.5s,
the F
right?
down on Theo Johnson.
Did he ran in the 4.5s if I'm not mistaken? No, or was it like
He
low
ran a
4.4?
4.57, a 121.2 weight adjusted speed score, which is in the 98th percentile, at 6'6", 259.
Yeah, I gotta start drafting more.
He also kept Tyler Warren off the field.
You want to know too? Hey, guess what? If you're looking for a spike week guy at tight end, trust the guy that's one of the most athletic tight ends of all time that is in store for a bump in his second year.
I've been tacking on a lot of Terrence Ferguson to my 3 tight end builds, and maybe I should start tacking on some Theo Johnson to my 3 tight end builds.
Hey, you learn something new, even if it's at the 53-minute mark of a video.
Yeah, no, I think Theo's a decent shout for sure. And yeah, his agility scores and his burst was also like really, really good as well for his size. But yeah, second year quarterbacks and tight ends.
Stadium, by the way.
Yes, definitely. And we should probably mention that you might be wondering, okay, why did we go so in depth on these second year players and also the rookies we did videos on as well? Well, ambiguity is how you get an edge in fantasy football. And we have way less information about Theo Johnson as we do about Mark Andrews, who's been in the league for like 7 years. So we kind of know the range of outcomes of, a 7th year tight end as opposed to a 2nd year tight end. And this is where you can kind of get an edge at the 2nd year quarterback, 2nd year tight end position. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this kind of series that we did. We are going to talk about some 3rd year players that we do think are good breakout candidates as well. Vis-a-vis Josh Downs as a good example.
The ones that haven't already broken out. Oh my God, why don't you guys have Devon Achane on this list?
Yeah, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs will not be on that list, but we'll be talking through the cases for the Zay Flowers and the Josh Downs of the world probably in that video, so definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to have the end is near pretty soon for the running back position, talk through all the older running backs. Have they fallen off? Have they not fallen off? What does the data say? All that stuff will be live for you guys tomorrow. But with that being said, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.